The Movi M5 from Freefly Systems might very well be our favorite filmmaking tool in our entire arsenal. Used properly, it functions as a Steadicam, a dolly, a shoulder-mounted rig, or crane in one portable, motor-driven package. Pair that with a Canon C100 with dual-pixel autofocus, and your creative possibilities are limited only by your imagination. Time and time again, we have come to the conclusion that there is no better gear combination than the Mōvi and the C100 for wedding, documentary, or commercial work.
3 years ago, we made a tutorial as soon as the Mōvi had dropped. Back then, gimbals were a fairly new concept, and in that video, we talked about mounting a C100 on an M5. The rig had only been out for a couple of weeks, and because there's a not so straightforward workaround to mounting a C100 onto the stage, that video picked up a lot of traction. Fast forward to today, and this is still our go-to rig, and we've learned a lot of different things in those years. Our inbox is constantly flooded with questions about our setup, our processes, our thoughts, and how it shaped our storytelling. So today, we wanted to make a follow-up video. To be modest, let's just call it the ultimate guide to flying a C100 on a Movi M5.
The rig itself has changed drastically over the past few years. Nowadays, we use a small HD 702 day bright monitor, which allows us to fly indoors and outdoors without the need for a sun hood. And we connect that to the camera through a hyper-thin HDMI cable. On the other end of the top bar sits a Rode Video Mic X, and that allows us to capture pristine stereo audio to complement our imagery. The Video Mic X might be the most important piece of gear on this entire rig, and that's because it gives us these very vivid sounds to pair with the cinematic movements that the M5 makes possible, and the result is immersiveness. Immersing the audience into our story should be the main purpose of everything we do, and nothing does that better than the Mōvi, so we'll come back to that idea. Additionally, we use the Zacuto C100 grip relocator connected to the top bar via a Zacuto ZUD. That allows us to place the C100 grip close to the Mōvi grips for quick exposure and white balance changes with the joystick. By remapping the magnification button on the C100 grip to handle AF lock functions, we can trigger the autofocus on and off as we fly, and that's a pretty cool thing. When the C100 Mark II was first announced, we all thought we were getting the perfect gimbal camera. Internal microphones, 60 frames per second at 1080p, the joystick on the back of the LCD. But then we all saw it, that unremovable protruding EVF. It was a travesty.
But the truth is, you can still fly a C100 Mark II on a Movi M5. It's a bit trickier to balance, and if you tilt up or down too quickly, EVF will hit the top or the back of the stage. We can probably count the number of times this has happened to us on one hand though, as we're usually more subtle with our movements. In that light, the EVF is nothing more than a small inconvenience, and one we're definitely willing to deal with for the ability to do slow motion footage. That being said, the original C100 is still our go-to Mōvi camera if we're not specifically looking to do slow motion footage. Why?
There's just something about the image it produces. It's warm, vibrant, full of detail, and it renders outdoor scenes in this magical way that the Mark II's bluish hue simply can't achieve. It all depends on the story we're telling and the mood we want to evoke. We love doing these smooth reveals where you're moving into or out of a scene slowly. People often ask us if we laid out dolly tracks for some of these shots, and no, it's simply about controlling your footsteps, feeling out the scene, and moving with your subject in this really organic way. We also often use it for establishing shots, replacing a tripod to create pans and tilts that are a little more dynamic.
It's also great for tracking shots where you're following your subject in a Steadicam fashion. probably the most obvious use for gimbals, but we can do some really unique things like moving around your subject, and before you know it, you're combining these tracking shots with sweeping reveal shots to create these energetic, immersive scenes that really draw the audience in. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you can use the Mōvi subtly in situations where a gimbal wouldn't traditionally be the go-to tool. By using it as you would a Manfrotto video monopod or a shoulder-mounted rig, you can shoot stationary shots or shots that don't require very drastic pans or tilts. You can even customize the resistance on the roll, pan, and tilt axes so that there's a bit less glide and a bit more shake to the footage.
As we mentioned earlier, immersion is the goal in every piece we create, and the Mōvi gives us limitless ways in which to achieve this. By something as simple as combining what would be 3 separate shots into one smooth tracking shot that follows the action, we're taking away the audience's ability to perceive and analyze each individual shot. Think the Copacabana scene in Goodfellas, or the opening shot in Boogie Nights, or the Dunkirk beach scene in Atonement. These long tracking shots present the characters and the worlds they exist in an incredibly realistic format. Adapt that to documentary work, and the great strides that Freefly has made with the Mōvi line, and one lone operator can create these same immersive worlds, which are formerly only possible in studio filmmaking. That's incredible.
We hope this video has provided some insight into how we fly our C100s on the Mōvi. For the following week, we'll be taking any questions you have. Just send them over to us via Instagram message or leave a comment below. And next Monday, we'll answer as many questions as we can on our Instagram stories. We'll see you then.